Hi, welcome to Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Robert Green, and joining me today is Erik Jensen. Hey, Erik, how you doing?
Great, thanks, and thanks for having me on the show, Robert.
You've been on the show a number of times. You've always come on to show your fantastic extensions, and today we're going to be looking at another one.
Yeah,
It was back in November of 24, I think. We did an episode on this show with the Data API Builder. We had Jerry Nixon come on to show the Data API Builder, and it gives you the ability to write REST APIs to talk to databases. And it's very cool. And it was a lot of steps. It just seemed to me like it was hard.
yeah.
And then the last time you were on the show, which was a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like about the end of last year sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing mermaid charts and you
Mhm.
showed one of your extensions and there was the ability to do Data API Builder. And I said, oh my God, we got to have Erik back on to show that, because there's ways to create your CRUD in your Data API much easier than who's not in favor of that. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
So just
The
a
list,
brief introduction of yourself for anybody who's new.
Yeah, my name is Erik Jensen, and I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I publish a number of tools, including some Visual Studio extensions. Um, they all relate to something with data. So if we just show some result here, so you can always see they almost all have the word SQL somewhere in them. And I've recently published something that I call SQL Database Project Power Tools, which helps you when you're developing with database projects in the Visual Studio.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. That's where the Data API Builder tool.
It's actually both in SQL Database Project Power Tools, where you can generate the API from your database project, but it's also in EF Core Power Tools,
Oh,
where you can actually generate it from a database or a database project.
oh, cool.
So
Okay.
it's in both places. In this demo, I'm going to show it from the SQL Database Project Power Tools.
Okay.
Yeah, but it could easily also be from the other one. It's not really one or the other. It's in both places, and as feature wise and functionality wise, it's exactly the same user experience you get.
Okay. So how did you stumble upon this? How did you decide to write this tool?
Yeah, actually, Jerry Nixon, who's the PM of Data API Builder, reached out to me and said, Erik, don't know if it was before or after he did this thing with you, but he said, like, can we make it easy? And we need to have something in Visual Studio to make it a little bit easier, because obviously he realized as well it was a little bit a lot of typing. Yes.
That's good.
and a lot of things that could go wrong if you didn't get it right the first time, etc. So yeah.
Okay.
So I tried to make the onboarding to Data API Builder smoother, both if you have a database project or if you have a live database. Eventually, of course, we need a live database to connect to, but we'll get around to that eventually.
So you don't need a database project to use this then, you're saying?
You don't need a database project. You just need a database somewhere. It can be a local database. It can be in Azure SQL. And the Data API Builder even supports Cosmos and Postgres, and I think also MySQL. So yeah.
Okay. So if I have a SQL Azure database, and that's what I want to write an API to talk to, when I want a database project for it, when would I not need a database project? Any extensions should I install? Can I just I actually have the core power tools, of course. Do I need to install the SQL database project?
In Visual Studio, you get a SQL database project experience already. That is a little bit old-fashioned because it's based on old project styles and that only builds on a Windows server. I am also the maintainer of an alternative way of building database projects. So if you just step back a little bit and look at what are database projects, they are a collection of scripts that define your schema. And when you build them, so to speak, you create a file called a Flatpak. And then you take that file and publish it, deploy it with a SQL package command line tool to your live database. And it will do a complicated or a magic thing is that it does a difference between your running database and what needs to be changed, and then creates auto scripts, non-destructive auto scripts to bring your database into your desired state that you have described in your Darkpack, so to speak.
Okay.
So I would say, and the EF Core Power Tools work really well together with a database project. I have a lot of blog posts where I go into detail about that. So you can basically generate EF Core DB context and model classes directly from your database project. Right. So I would say, of course, you need both. So the database project power tools is more supporting this new project style that is this community project that I also contribute to, but also adding a few niceties that you don't have that's in the box with Visual Studio, so to speak.
Okay. And then does that, I mean, I'm used to creating databases and tables using SQL Server Management Studio, so I could just use a database project instead and just do it all from inside the studio.
And then you have it all in source control and can deploy it in tandem with your changes to your application, basically. Mm-hmm. So if you're adding a new feature, it might not be unlikely that you're adding a new column or a new table to your database. So those two things can go in tandem.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
Let's go into a new solution that I have here and add a new project. So I have installed my extension. Actually, I also have EF Core Power Tools installed, but that's beside this discussion. So I will install a new SQL Server database project, and it has this still ending name of it here. That's also a Microsoft Server database project, but I'm going to go for this little more, let's say, modern way of building Darkpacks. So let's call it database. Add it here. And then we can specify which version of SQL Server, the SQL Server engine we're targeting. And also if we want to enable code analysis, we'll have a quick look at that as well. So now we just have a blank project here, and we have a little README with a link about how to get started. And basically you can just .NET build it, and you can also look at the extensive user guide. That's a little bit out of topic here, but you can see it even has this node at the top here. Let me just see if I can do something smart like this. I couldn't. Yeah. So it has this little thing here at the top. So you can actually, once we get some stuff in it, we can actually look inside the contents of the Darkpack. Mm. So you can either add new items. So we supply some item templates, like a new database table. I'm not going to do that. You can also import an existing database.
Oh, man.
More interesting. So if you already have a database somewhere,
yeah.
So I have on my local machine, I have the Chinook database. I can import it, basically hydrate the scripts that define it into SQL scripts. So that I'm going to do that. I picked the famous Chinook database, which is like modeling a music shop.
Yep.
And once it's done its work, hopefully we'll see some files appear here. And that will give us the files that constitute the database. So now we can see it has a folder called DBO and then a folder called tables. If it also had views and stored procedures and other objects, they would be in different folders. So it's like for each object type, there's a folder here. So if we open this one, this is the definition of the album table inside this database. So there's no data here. To be clear, it's only the definition of the containers for data, so to speak, which is called tables in terms of relational databases.
And you could obviously add views and stored procedures as well as additional tables here, right?
The functions, views, more tables, stored procedures, whatever.
Okay.
And then you can build it to verify that if you have foreign key references, that they actually reference to something that exists, and if you have stored procedures, that you are referring to objects that's actually inside your database, and so on. Mm-hmm. And in addition, we have code analyzers that will do static code analysis of your scripts, create scripts, and also, of course, views and stored procedures and functions and all kind of programmability. And it will do like static analysis based on about 150 different analysis rules, and then show that as issues that you could either choose to ignore or address. But let's just try to build it, see what happens. So this is a demo database that's out there on the internet. So it's not something I've been fine-tuning to not have any errors or anything like that. So you can see you get actually quite a few errors here. It's complaining about naming and some things like that. So if you as a team don't want these things, you can just disable them. You can read more about it.
So if you're building from an existing database, you shouldn't get errors, but you might get a lot of warnings, right?
It's all warnings. Yeah. Okay. It's all warnings. You shouldn't get errors. That would be extremely unlikely, because it should be able to. It should be consistent. Otherwise, how could it exist?
Okay.
So when we have done the build, you can see it's actually unpacking the backpack for us and showing some pretty ugly XML files inside it if you're really into it. But it will also show, you can also do something called post and pre and post deployment scripts, which are just scripts merged into a single SQL script. Mm-hmm. And they will also become visible here if you need to do that. But we're not going to deep dive on this, but we have a database project with all the tables in it that we can address. So we can actually also seed a table. I'm not going to show it, but we have a feature called script table data that will actually allow you to generate a merge script based on existing data. Because for some tables, you might want to pre-populate them, like lookup tables and things like that. You might want to deploy them together with the database table. So you have your transactional tables, and then you have your lookup values or your enumerations or whatever it is that you want to have a more fixed set of data surrounding it. Then you can also do a schema compare with a live database. So if your live database has drifted away from your schema, it can generate script to bring those two into sync again.
Okay.
Then we can create the mermaid ER diagram that like we saw on the previous episode around the release of the.
That was back in November, the episode more.
November. Yeah, so we can pick which tables do we want to include in our diagram, and it will create a diagram file for us, add it to the project, and we get this nice view. And now it's even better because someone in the Visual Studio area was so sweet to actually do some improvements, I think, based on our little talk about maybe this or other talks about mermaid diagrams. So now we have this preview where you can zoom in and out, and it's much nicer experience for the mermaids than when we saw in the early days of the VS 26. So yeah, they had plus and minus up here and things like that. So
I'm sure everybody's watching this show and improving the product based on what we talk about. There's no doubt about that.
That was my impression, because I didn't address it with anybody else, but yeah. Anyway, it was a nice thing to happen, no matter why it happened. So yeah. So so we've shown the diagram. Let's not dwell too much on that. Finally, we have deployment scripts. So I talked about that you can have scripts that you run before the DACPAC deployment has knowledge of the schema of the database, and they can be used for example, destructive manipulation of your database, like dropping columns and things like that. You can add a script to do that in your. No, sorry, you actually can't do that. You can it's better post deployment. You can fill up your tables with data. Pre-deployment, not so useful. You actually need to run this kind of script I was talking about even earlier. So that's it. And the final feature is the data API builder scaffolding.
Yes.
Which was why we're here today, I suppose. Yeah.
Very excited about this.
Yes. And as I mentioned, I also have EF Core Power Tools installed, so I can actually also run the same feature in using EF Core Power Tools. It's exactly the same feature.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to do some Project Power Tools because I haven't really. I think I might not be running the latest version of EF Core Power Tools, and I know I'm running the latest of Project Power Tools.
Okay.
But they're both in sync now with the latest Bailey of each. I don't know if I've done a Power Tools release recently. So, yeah. It's a little bit daunting to do a new release when you have 500,000 installations. And every time you do a release, somebody is going to be a little bit broken.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's try this. And it will actually open the dark pack and enumerate all the objects inside it.
Mm-hmm.
So list all the tables. So the idea about the data API builder is that you can easily expose an API, or you can expose a model of your database, and that can then be exposed as a REST API, a GraphQL endpoint, and now also a SQL MCP server, as they call it on the team.
Ooh.
So the idea is you can pick which objects you actually want to. We could also just go wholesale and expose everything, but I'm a little bit reluctant to expose my customer database and my invoices.
Okay.
So I'm only going to just expose basically my catalog, my product catalog here,
Okay.
and not have anything to do with customers and invoices and employees and so on. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So let's do that. So now we can see there's currently no files in the project on the right, and it's running. So say should I create an env file with your connection string? Of course, this is, yes, we want to do that. And I think it's, okay, I don't know. Oh, it's because I don't have if I was in a Git repo and had done my usual Visual Studio Git ignore, this would be ignored but I'm not in a Git repo. So basically, the message is you don't want to include this in source control because it can contain secrets.
Yes.
I'm not showing it very educationally right now because I'm not in a Git repo.
Okay.
So this, you can see there's a reference to a connection string in the env called DAP connection string here. What's happening here is normally you as a one that's implementing data API builder would have to type all these commands
Right.
to be able to build a useful data API builder model.
Okay.
Which is a little bit tedious, potentially complex. So the tool has done that for us. So the data API builder has a JSON file, but this has not built the JSON file. This has built the commands to create the JSON file.
Okay, so you haven't actually built the API yet. You've just had this will generate the data commands.
The commands to build the API. Yeah. So we have, if we dive a little bit into what all that's going on here. So I have some advice here. This creates a DAP filter configuration based on the database objects you picked. So then you need to run this command file.
Okay.
And before that, it's recommended to put something useful in here. And right now, since we are connecting to a database project, I'm just putting this kind of pseudo connection string here that doesn't really point to anything.
Right.
So I'm just going to pick one from your other project and it's a DAP connection string. Yeah. So here we have a connection string for our SQL Express local instance, Chinook database, and we're using integrated security, and we're not using encryption today. And make sure to exclude the env file from source control. Yes, we will do that. And then this command file will install the latest pre-release of Data API Builder. So let's hope Jerry and his crew didn't break anything while they were speaking. And then it will create a config file. This will actually create like a stop config file for a MS SQL database with our connection string in development mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will issue commands to add the tables to the config file.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to specify the config file because we're just using this is like the default name of the config file.
Okay.
Yes. And then it's adding the tables that we picked. And then it's adding relationships so you can navigate. I think it's probably particularly interesting in terms of GraphQL, the GraphQL endpoint, that you can do navigations between objects because it knows about the relationships.
Right.
And they're specified here. So if you had stored procedures, it would also expose those as kind of like methods that you could like the endpoints that acts as a method that you could call and returns a result set. And if there were reviews in the database, those would also be included.
Okay.
There are no views in this database, but if there were any, they would also be included as like read-only entities or endpoints or whatever. And then I'm suggesting that you should run dap validate to validate the configuration, and then you can run dap start to actually start the host.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's go into the terminal in Visual Studio and see if we can create the configuration file.
Yeah. Build.
Yeah. Dap build cmd. Yeah. Okay, we already have the latest version apparently. So now it's going through the motions of running each of these commands and telling us it's updating the configuration for each of the commands. So now we can run dap. So dap is when you install Microsoft Data API Builder, the command that you need to run it is actually just dap, D-A-B. So if I just type dap here, it's going to tell me what options or what verbs are available. So I'm going to run dap validate. And again, we're using the default name of the configuration file, which is dap config JSON, as we can see over here.
Mm-hmm.
And it just knows that otherwise we could specify the exact name for the configuration file. You'll see. So it's going to validate that the consistency of the configuration file, and it says it would really like me to have descriptions for the MCP server. It's actually, it says it's missing fields, but I think what it's really asking for is descriptions of the fields, because that will make the MCP server smarter about understanding my schema.
And where would you put those?
So those could be metadata inside the database. Yeah, let's see if we can go here. I'm just going to go to the lovely new Management Studio and connecting to my SQL Express instance. Don't save. And looking inside the database, because it's just because there's tooling to do that here. That's why I'm showing it in Management Studio. But you can also, actually, it could be interesting maybe to add that to Power Tools or something else. Yeah. If you go in here and say properties for the album table, you can actually add extended properties here. I think you can even do it in the table designer. But if you add a property called ms_description,
okay,
and put in some text here describing the table or even the columns, then that will be extracted as metadata about your database table.
I see. Okay.
But you could, of course, also add it manually. But a good way to do it is to actually add it to your database.
Got it.
MS description. And then this table hold music albums, blah blah blah. If anybody knows what an album is, but yeah. Yeah. So now we have the configuration file, and it's not really one you want to start hand editing. So it's really handy to have this shortcut to make it a little bit simpler.
Okay.
See. Yep.
Got it. Yep.
Yes. With that, let's go to the console again. Sorry, was it this one? Yeah. So now we are basically ready to run DAP. So I can type DAP start. We have a connection string. We have a configuration file. That's basically all we need. Am I in the wrong? I think I'm in. Yeah, I was in the
One.
Yeah, in the wrong folder for some reason. Yeah, it got out of sync. I should be in the folder. I was in the root of the solution for some reason. DAP start, and that's why it's complaining that it couldn't find the default configuration file, which is called dap-config.
There we go.
Here we go, and it's running some queries to be smarter about the structure of the database, and then it's hosting a little HTTP endpoint here. Sorry, I stopped. Yeah, I will start it again. And then I can go here, localhost 5000. So you can see it's actually giving us some health status reports here and the version of DAP and an app name. I don't know why we need that, but yeah. And if we go to, is it Swagger? Maybe it's just Swagger. Yeah, you get a Swagger endpoint.
Nice.
That has generated. So for each of your entities, as it's called in DAP lingo, you can specify. Let's go here. Entities, actions. So you can specify what type of actions are actually allowed with the album table. And for now, I've just allowed, for this development purposes, I've just enabled all the actions. So that's why we get the whole array of git, put, patch, delete,
Cool.
whatever. Yeah. So if we run this, and as it supports, the API supports authorization. For example, against intra ID, you of course need to configure in your config file which authority and so on you're authenticating against. And it also supports kind of, even for the REST API, supports kind of OData filters as part of the query string. And then it has things like next link to the next page, and it has a limit of, I don't know, has a built-in limit of how many rows you're getting back, the default limit of how many rows you're getting back.
Okay.
So now we're getting all the albums in the Chinook database.
Nice.
Deep Purple in Rock, Stormbringer, you name it. And then it's returning the first 100 and showing us the next link here to get the next 100, I suppose. We can try.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this is now built your REST API.
So it's now built a REST API, and I can piecemeal decide what kind of access I want to each of my entities by specifying the actions.
Now, what if you want to now deploy this to a real server or put it up in Azure so you can talk to an Azure database? What are your next steps?
My next steps would be to deploy the env file or set some environment variable called DAP connection string during my deployment. And then DAP is available as a container. So I would basically just publish an Azure container app and import the DAP config file as part of that container deployment.
Okay.
And then my API would be up and running.
Cool.
It's very cool. Yes.
And there's examples on how to do that. Where?
In the data API builder documentation. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just what I'm enabling is quick onboarding to a local development experience.
Right. And then if you wanted to make changes to how it works, you would create, if you wanted specific queries, create stored procedures. How would you do that?
Yeah. my end goal, and I mean, I need more users of this, and my end goal is actually be able to store some information here. I also create this JSON file, which is like a list of the objects that I include when I generate the command file.
Mm-hmm.
My end goal would be to be able to persist choices like what kind of access do you want for your table. But right now you would basically just have to run the whole process again and not do any manual changes before the very last moment. Yeah.
Okay, so if I wanted to have a query that returns artist and album, right? Artist
Exactly.
dash album. So
Yeah.
I would then,
So an artist and an album, so you can see both the title of the name of the artist and the title of the album.
so would I just use
So then you could create a view or a stock
view? Okay.
probably just a view.
Okay.
So yeah. So I will just go here and create something here like album view. Create view, album view, and we'll get some help from if we're lucky we'll get a little bit of help as select. We'll get some help from our good friend.
Yeah, is there, can you just do a Copilot chat and say, write me a view that returns?
There was actually Copilot type ahead, but but yes, it's the same thing. So, and you can see I also have this analysis running. So saying query statement should finish with a semicolon.
Okay.
So let's be good citizens here and avoid adding more errors to our database schema than strictly necessary. Does this look kind of, it has a album ID and the title, the artist ID and the artist name.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't
sounds like something
have
we need to refine that more at this point.
We don't actually have to do it. I just wanted to know how you.
Not, but then we will just
Okay.
build the project and then basically run the tool again, point to the album view.
Cool. That's awesome.
I'm just going to show you quickly. So it should now be able to show that there's also a view in this, but it doesn't. I don't know why it doesn't. Maybe it didn't actually build. I'm not sure if it actually built because it didn't really tell us anything. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, well, you don't have a from in your view, right? So okay, that's fine. We don't have.
Yeah. That's something. Yeah, I know. I see what I mean. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes. Never mind.
Okay.
You get the
point. That's how you.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how you would iterate over it. Yeah.
And then again, that's the benefit of doing this as a database project, because now you're just inside Visual Studio for everything instead of having to.
Correct, and you get those build errors if you're completely unable to type any SQL statements in front of a live audience, etc. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
And on top of that, interestingly enough, like I'm running the pre-release version. If you noticed, I'm installing the pre-release version of Data API Builder because it's actually also enabling an MCP server. Yeah. So if we go here, I like to file recent files. So there's this magic file here in Visual Studio called mcp.json, which is in my users folder, and it defines all the globally installed MCP servers that I have available to me.
Wow.
So if we go to dap start, I go to the correct folder. Failed to start the end yet.
You should probably take that out.
No, maybe. I don't know what happened here. I'm just going to restart Visual Studio because it's already running here, and we probably have a hold of it already. So I'm just going to go to app start.
Do you need to take out that album view SQL since it doesn't actually build?
No, it doesn't actually matter because it's far away from what we're doing now.
Okay.
CG database. Job start. Something was already using the HTTP port.
Okay.
So then I should be able to reconnect my my MCP server here. And if I go to Copilot, I'm now I'm in agent mode in Copilot, meaning I can use tools, including MCP servers. So I can actually see I have this additional tool here called SQL MCP Server, and it has ability to actually manipulate the database. You can, of course, also specify which tools you want to enable. So maybe you don't want delete record enabled. Maybe you just read and describe entities or execute entity and so on. But the gist of it is it can understand your database schema through a data API builder, and so you can ask it to like create something else based on this database. Now we already have the API, but maybe like something else that we should build on top of this database, like an entry form or something like that. Because now it knows about the properties of the database, and if you have a description of the properties, it's probably doing an even better job than just guessing. So yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
excellent. That is amazingly awesome stuff. It makes it a lot easier, I think.
It certainly does.
Yeah. So there's definitely documentation on the API builder. There's a Microsoft Learning module called Develop a Data API for Azure SQL Database. I'll put links to those. Yeah. So you should go take a look at those and understand what the Data API builder is doing. But then you don't have to build it by hand, which is awesome, using your tool.
Exactly.
Thanks so much for coming on and showing this to us.
You're very welcome.
So cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will see you next time on Visual Studio Toolbox.